great to see everyone. Welcome. My name is Colleen Aubrey. I'm Senior Vice President of Applied AI Solutions at Amazon. And I have with me Earle Jensen and I have Julie Durham. Let me do a quick introduction and then we'll get into a discussion. So I'm reading. Julie is Chief Digital Officer at United Health Group. She's doing pioneering applications of AI in healthcare, a super important area, from revolutionizing the patient care experience to accelerating drug development. And United Health Group is showing us really how AI can save lives. So thanks to Julie for being here. And then Kate. Oh, sorry, bit of lag there. Kate, yeah, Kate is head of revenue at Anthropic. So she's really at the forefront of shaping how organizations are harnessing AI capabilities. The three of us actually get to work together a little bit on this. So Kate's looking at everything from integrating AI with enterprise systems to pioneering new applications, working across many sectors from defense to marketing. So she has a front row seat on the application of AI across many industries, and her work is really helping to define how we responsibly apply AI in many parts of business. Welcome to Kate.
Thanks for having us.
So today we decided to take a slightly different tact. We wanted to have a discussion about how AI is changing the way we work. And we started having a discussion about what will the best of us do in the future with AI as part of our team. So maybe to get us started, we could do some level setting. So Julie, maybe I'll start with you. What are your observations about how your own teams or the companies you're talking with are actually, where are they with AI? What are people and teams struggling with?
Yeah, well, we're incredibly proud of our progress on AI. We've got about 1,000 AI use cases. In no way are we satisfied. And I'll kind of break that down in a few ways. I think it's natural that a lot of our use cases actually are mimicking the business and operations as we know them today. So while we're continuing to make what we know go faster, I think we're struggling with how to really operate at our highest level and get at more innovative things that don't exist yet. And I think this is natural with any step change of technology. I think what's also interesting is we're starting to see, as we think about these agents, thinking of them as part of your team. And I'd love to hear how you're thinking about that too.
Yeah, Kate, you get to work with a lot of different organizations. Like, what are your observations of where people are at and what are they struggling with?
It's funny, if I had done something like this 2 years ago, and I asked, and I will ask you all this. First of all, it's amazing how many of you are braving the sun right now. How many of you use AI day to day at work? Okay, 2 years ago, that would have been maybe 5, 10%. So we're already seeing this crazy growth rate in this. But how many of you would say that your job has fundamentally changed? Far fewer. And so that's sort of my answer to your question is we see a whole lot of teams adopting the technology, knowing that it will change how we work, but not necessarily having their roles transformed quite yet. So we're still in that phase of figuring that out.
Yeah, in my own group, I would say that we're in like the 90% plus of people using AI day to day, but I would say we're in the 5% or less where teams are actually building differently. And that I think is the power of AI. AI is it's reasonative and it's reasoning and generative. And so the question for me is, how do you collaborate with AI and change the way you build your products and services and deliver them to customers? I don't think it's about automation. And so I'm keen to hear actually from, maybe we can start with you, Kate. How do you think about automate versus like reinvent?
You have to do both, I think. So many companies, so many executive teams, we sit down, do an exec biz review and sit down and think like, what are all the investments you could make in AI? And the natural inclination is to go to where you're already doing a lot of ML automation. It's just where everyone's leaned in terms of tech and changing how they operate for a really long time. So it's a natural thing to do that. I think where you start to see people getting really creative, and it's so important that executives are leading from the top, like what you're doing, is to actually really challenge that paradigm to say, sure, let's lean into that. It's an obvious use case. It's not always perfect. You know, generative AI is generative. It's not deterministic. There are certain things that ML can do that AI just can't do nearly as well. But there are a lot of things that AI can help to automate. It's really pushing your teams to think about how what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they can think completely differently about those tasks.
Yeah. And Julie, it's interesting for you in healthcare, like, because you have actually quite a lot of constraints in terms of the ways in working and the processes. And then on the other hand, there's an incredible amount of upside by using AI to change the patient experience, change the drug discovery experience. Like, how do you, like, where do you see things falling?
Yeah, I think one within healthcare, we're unapologetic about having accuracy and empathy in everything we do. So there are things where we know we're just going to spend more time on to make sure that we've got the right answer at the right moment, not just for regulatory reasons, but healthcare is the most personal thing you'll ever experience. We're kind of thinking about that in sort of first, we know there's a ton that we can do in just how you access care. So just navigating the US health system and easy ways where you don't have to pick up the phone, and AI can be great at that, at helping you navigate. Then we're also thinking about it in how do we actually just use it for transparency? What's actually happening? What's going on with this flow? What do I need to do next? What does this lab mean? Like really easy adoption there. And then also getting into helping support clinical decisioning. And if you think about that, that allows us to do the most human things, which is to have these meaningful interactions because we've got a lot of this administrative type of friction out of the ecosystem. But where I think it gets really exciting is in the spirit of us and our jobs, having agents that are part of our teams, whether we're coming up with an idea or we're creating code, we definitely see where you have agents who you have in certain personas. So you may be a caregiver for someone and managing an agent who understands certain tasks, certain follow ups, and things that they can do on your behalf. I think that next set of things you didn't think you could do in healthcare is going to come sooner than we think. But we know we have a lot of, I'll call it classic ways the systems work that we have to challenge status quo, not just automate our way through, but make better before we get to some of those trusting experiences.
Yeah. So maybe we can shift gears. And for me, this is like an interesting discussion of like, as you think about our careers moving forward, us and everyone else on this amazing pier in the sunlight in October, unusual. What skills and attributes will people need to focus on to accelerate their professional development and to really move forward in this new environment? Like, what does that look like? Maybe Julia can start with you.
Yeah, I love this question. I think all of us are getting asked like one, what should my kids study in school? I love that you mentioned that one. And then what happens to my job? And I think if you look at the skills that are going to be most important, it's actually obsessing over really good problems, understanding it deeply. And I always loved the 5 whys, just asking why, why, why. I think if you anchor to that and then also learn how to use AI to get through that process and accelerate and learn, I think those are the skills that are going to make the most impact on the future. And all of our jobs will change, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think this is actually where your career gets a lot more fun because you will have access to more information, more tools, more automation, and you'll be able to swing at more important ideas. But I think it's also the reverse is happening where because AI is creating a lot of information, it's not all good information. I don't know which one of you said AI slop, but I'm sure it's a word that's out there. Now I can't unsee all the AI slop, either from an inbound email to vibe coding. So there's this balance of making sure you deeply understand the quality of what you're creating that I think will differentiate you from others who are just pushing AI for AI's sake. But I'd love to hear how you're thinking about it too.
Kate, like, what have you got to say about AI slop? Like, there is a lot of it out there. Don't be a victim of AI slop. That's my top tip. But Kate, like, how do you think about this?
I couldn't agree more. And actually, you said something earlier where we should all get used to the idea that we'll be working alongside AI agents. I think the ability to work alongside AI well is going to be incredibly important. Don't just outsource things to AI. That's where you get slop. You know, I work in go to market. And so thinking of creatively and thoroughly about how you're going to work with a partner, how you're going to work with a customer is so important for any salesperson. Yes, AI can generate an account plan, but it shouldn't, because the whole point was that you have to think through the process and actually do some critical thinking. So to your original question, what's most important? How do you develop the skills to do that critical thinking, to actually be a good virtual collaborator with AI and not just think you can outsource your job? Because chances are whatever will come back without that human creative thinking partner is going to be slop and everyone's going to notice it.
To be fair, that smart comment I actually stole from Colleen, but she wasn't here yet, so I told you to
Very
like
generous.
sound
That's
very
great.
impressive.
I mean, for me, what's interesting, like at Amazon, we use a process called we write a press release and a set of FAQs, do a set of mocks to explore a new product idea. And you know, inside Amazon, there's all these teams saying, "I've created this tool to write peer FAQs." I'm like, yeah, but it's slop. Because the real opportunity for me is writing writing every word of the press release, and then asking AI, "What do you think about this idea? Is this really the customer's problem? Is this really innovative? What else is happening in the marketplace? Does this business model make sense?" And then you go through this process of actually collaborating with a tool that can reason and be critical and provide feedback, and it accelerates your thinking. And so this, like, I think to Kate's point, it's not like the outsourcing piece. It's actually incorporating the way that AI can accelerate the exploration ideas and the refinement of the thinking. So if I think about this process of like dramatically changing how we work and how we put capable AI as part of our team and into our own hands, like what are the things that you think people need to be thinking about as they start transforming their own work, the way they work in teams, and then in future, the way their organizations work?
I'll take a swing at this one first. I think first off, I think what I love about AI is how accessible it is. Like it is very easy, regardless of your background or what school you went to get started, to start co-creating. So I think what's also fun is the traditional roles that you think of today are kind of done. Like in a way, we all kind of relied on Agile and then product development. You're going to have so many other contributors that are going to come to your team to co-create an idea, whether that was through AI or their formal background, that I think that paradigm is changing. It won't belong just to the marketing team or the engineering team. I think we're even talking about like, how do we track all of our AI projects? At some point, you don't. It just simply will be an expectation that why wouldn't you also use AI? I think what also becomes really fun is at this moment, there's no rules about who should or shouldn't do AI. So think about how interesting that is for your career. And how cool would it be if the majority of code or what's ever created from AI also had a diverse landscape of contributors versus the way that we've traditionally built architecture? So I think that thinking, even for us at UHG, is okay, unless you're in a clinical setting and I needed you to, have that like clinical degree, ideas can start to come from anywhere. I think our ability to iterate through those is starting to come faster. And I love what you said about use the AI to also see if your idea is actually unique. It can help you with that. So much of my career was me falling in love with something that I thought was so special, only to find out 52 other people at the company had that project already going, right? And being able to understand that and work on the next new thing, I think is what AI is going to unlock for everyone.
Kate, where do you see companies at? Or where do you see them going?
We see we're pretty deliberate about this. We see 3 big buckets of investment in every company. Simple, and I'm oversimplifying something that's pretty complicated, but you're empowering your teams, the individuals. You're empowering and changing how you operate processes, whether that's organizations, whether it's big processes like claims processing, for example, or you're changing the product that you're building. We see this a lot in tech companies, and pretty much every startup today is a native AI startup building on top of an LLM in some form or another. And just getting started on empowering the individuals has actually been a big project for a lot of companies. Many of you raised your hands, but many of you also said you haven't totally changed how you work yet. So we still have a long way to go there. The thing that I think is most fun is on the other 2 buckets. How do you change what you're doing for your customers, and how do you change how you operate internally? The best teams and the best ideas are the ones that are empowered to do internal hackathons and come up with things entirely on their own. So if you're not doing that today at your companies, you should. I actually know you're hosting them. And it's amazing how creative teams can be, the folks who are doing things day to day, knowing how it could be done better and empowering them to share the big, crazy idea that they have for how to make that happen with AI. The more you can empower that in your organizations, by far the better.
So let's go a little bit deeper on Agile.
You might have lost your mic. I'm not sure.
Now? Okay, we're back.
You're back.
We're back.
Okay.
So let's go a little deeper on agile, because, I'm dating myself, but the decades ago when I started in tech, we talked about agile development and, you know, actually it was just yesterday when I started in tech. But now when I think about, what is the development process? Is agile extensible to this, or does this totally change? So I'm curious, when I think about where AI is most advanced, I think in the development process, it's getting very good at coding, at operations, at security, all those pieces. So I think this agile, this way of working, which has a science around it, is an interesting experiment for where will we go in future and across many parts of the business. So Kate, share your thoughts on how do you think about agile?
I think everything in the way that we operate will change for sure. I'll use an example of an area where I think agile is kind of breaking. There's a startup in Europe called Lovable. Have any of you heard of this? It's an amazing company. They're a customer of ours, and they use Claude to build the products that they're using. What they're trying to do is to go and empower companies so that anyone in the company can build the next product. So if I had product feedback for our product organization, their idea, and I really subscribe to this, is that I should never come with a product feature request that I haven't actually built and demoed by myself as someone who's not technical. And I think that whole product development process is going to change quite a bit when anyone in a company can build a prototype of something, and then you're evaluating things that have already been built that feel much more tangible than used to be the case.
Ursula, I was just thinking too, there are parts of Agile, the simple Agile manifesto, I think are still relevant, right? Like working software over comprehensive documentation. But I think the roles and structures and ceremonies and hierarchies to which we then applied on top of that doesn't quite fit anymore. And I do think it is incredibly fun to watch how quickly the teams are prototyping and co-creating ideas and building on each other at an accelerated rate. We actually just did a hackathon. I was in India 2 weeks ago, and we had 500 teammates build fully agentic bots along with the product team in an hour. And afterwards, I kind of joked. I'm like, look, I have no idea if these are any good, but we got dreams, so let's go, right? Like, I'd so rather have teams that are self-organizing, co-creating, failing fast, and getting to that culture than getting the org hierarchy and roles right at this moment. I think what's also fun is we're really early. And instead of being scared, you get to define what the future of work and product development looks like. I think that's super exciting.
You said that earlier. This is a moment in time where no one really is policing how you're using the technology, and take advantage of that.
Why would go as fast as you
fun.
can, learn as much as you can. I mean, what's the worst that happen? You have a bunch of fun. Like,
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking quite a lot about is what's the role of I start thinking about, everyone is a manager. If everyone's a manager, and some people manage teams of AI, and that team of AI is just going to get larger and larger and larger, and some people manage, AI and people, but everyone will have to collaborate with AI and people, but everyone will also have to manage AI. And so now I start thinking about, how do you onboard AI? How do I teach AI about the ways in which we do things here? How do I get them to understand our voice as an organization and the way we think through problems? How am I actually deploying AI and saying, hey, I don't think you're very competent. You should check in with me before you do that news thing. But you AI over here, I think you're good. I want you to proceed until apprehended, and I'll check back in with you tomorrow morning. We'll do a stand-up. And so how do you think about if the role of us managing these increasingly large teams of AI that are going to be quite diverse in terms of the level of expertise and autonomy. And so how do you think about what does that mean in future, and where do people need to focus their skills? We'll start with Kate and see what you've got to say.
When I first started at Anthropic, it was 2 years ago, which in the AI world is a really long time. I remember our CTO, Sam, told me that his plan for the next year was just to manage an army of Claudes. I thought it was kind of nuts, I'm not going to lie, at the time. And then already now, only 2 years later, 90% of the code at Anthropic is written by Claude. And every engineer who feels really empowered by the technology is managing a small team of Claudes that are working on their behalf all the time. And this actually gets to what you're talking about. You can't police every project that's going on in a company because it's just everywhere right now. But what you can do is standardize a system prompt, stylistic expectations, a few things that you should ask everyone to prompt in the system to make sure that our style, our kind of rules of code, and our rules of collaborating with the AI are actually just embedded into how we're using Claude day to day. And so I do think everyone here becomes a manager, and there's room for us to standardize how we prompt these models to make sure that we're not getting slop out.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember too is at the end of the day, resources are not infinite, right? You're going to be managing only a certain subset of tokens, however you want to quantify that. You are going to have to pick the things you want your AI agent to work on. You're going to have to make sure that you manage those. Like that will be another part of your ecosystem. I think what I also love, and I love that AWS has had this individual contributor TLCP role too. I think those become incredibly valuable and much more powerful in the future. I'd love to hear how you're thinking about that too.
Yeah. When I think of like everyone being a manager and being able to scale through a team to get the outcomes you're looking for without putting your hands on every keystroke and every piece of the work, this is something I think everyone will need to be increasingly great at, regardless. But I also think there's an interesting new career path of the very senior individual contributor. And historically, you've seen that in engineering and in applied science. I think it will happen in many different parts of the business with many different skill set, because the surface area which we will be able to work on, the scope, the complexity, the level of ambiguity, it's just going to go up, because we don't need to spend our time on the keystrokes. The work will come to you. And when the work comes to you, it's the high judgment decisions that are going to be the critical points that lead to a better outcome, where AI can work back from those decisions and work back and reason through the tactical execution of that. And so for me, I think it's a super exciting time, because on one hand, everyone's going to be a manager. On the other hand, I can really see this future where we'll have more and more opportunities for very senior ICs exercising great high judgment and managing that ambiguity and that quality across a very large portfolio of AI agents.
And that goes back to what you were saying earlier about what are the skills that matter so much. It's judgment. It's an ability to articulate a problem statement really well and understand what a goal really should be. And if you can do that quite well, you can manage a team of AI really effectively. It will be really exciting to see what people can do.
And no slop.
No slop.
Don't tolerate the slop.
Don't do it.
Any closing comments, Julie?
One, this has been fantastic. Thank you for letting me steal some of your smart words too. So, but I think I know it's easy to kind of look at this and be scared about what's going to change, as opposed to thinking about all of the amazing things you get to create. This is not just for technology. Their marketing teams, our clinical teams, everyone's world is going to evolve here, and I could not be more enthusiastic and optimistic about that. So,
Kate?
If you take one thing away from this, go find a friend and go solve a problem that's been driving you crazy for a while. Just try. You'll be very pleasantly surprised to see how much you can get done with just one or two people.
Yeah. So I think maybe if I close off, let me check my notes, make sure we've hit everything. I think the last thing I would say is that the reason to be excited about the future is this opportunity to work on problems at a scale and complexity that have not been within grasp before. Like for me at Amazon, I'm like, what used to take 50 people, we probably can do that with 10. And 10 people working in a tight team and collaborating and being really flexible over the roles. There's no need to have these hard functional lines anymore, but really flexing across, like, what is the job to be done to deliver this sort of great experience to customers, to solve that great problem. And I feel very excited about this surface area exploding. So I would encourage everyone to see this as an opportunity. and an opportunity to be able to put your arms around something much bigger and more meaty than you've done in the past, because you can put a team of AI to work for you, doing that heavy lifting so that you really can spend your time doing the thinking.
Love it.
I think with that, we'll conclude. Everyone can suck up a little more sun, and I hope you have a great rest of conference.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.